from somebody who, say, snuck across the border.
And has lived here for 20 years.
Right.
I call that, all right, if you are an American and you have been committing a crime for 20 years, same crime for 20 years, is the American government or the Department of Justice going to be too eager to say, let's just forgive and forget?
They're
we
not actually known for that.
We do have statutes of limitations in this country. But if you've been actively committing the same crime for 20 years in this country and the law finally gets its hands on you, they're not going to let you go. And I get where Trey Gowdy's coming from with this little David Pfeiffer quack. Just all he was trying to do was demonize the right for feeling the way that they do. Trying to...
Because it's racist,
right.
And it's terrible, and liberals are so much better people than conservatives are anyway.
Exactly. See, the according to David Pfeiffer, the only reason that a Republican would have for not wanting to grant amnesty to 11 million people is it's got to be racism. It's got to be. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that people are here illegally or that they're breaking the law. It's racism. Those are brown people. And everybody knows that Republicans are always white, and they always hate everybody who's a different color than they are. That's what David Pfeiffer's trying to get across. And that's why Trey Gowdy is calling him a demagogic political hack. Because that's what he is.
Because that's what a demagogic political hack does. They take away everything important about an issue and substitute it with a talking point.
A false talking point at that.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't even matter what the talking point is. It just doesn't even seem to matter. They just go ahead and create something, anything that distracts from the real complexity of the problem. Or basically anything when a liberal looks at a problem, they look at it as, how can I apply more government to this?
Right.
And so everything that would diminish the government's role, or in the case of Obama and his administration, anything that, prevents the executive branch from sticking its nose in there, that can't be good.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Because all this comes back to the president wanting control of the entire system.
Well, in order for him, he's got to have full control of the system, and he's got to have his hands in the whole pie. Because let's not forget, the
Constitution keeps getting in his way.
But let's not forget, he's going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. And you can't do that if you're only able to put your hand in all higgledy-piggledy, You've got to have full control. Complete control. I teased our show this afternoon on Facebook by saying this could be possibly our most controversial show. And I've gotten a lot of now, look, how could you guys get any more controversial? I mean, really? Well, we can. Because everything that we're going to talk about tonight, we've been talking about immigration. We're about to talk about, the economics speech that the president gave yesterday, and we're going to talk about Bill O'Reilly. All of that has to do with one key factor. And it's something that, it's been said that us on the right, we're entirely motivated by it. And that's race. It's all coming down to race in the United States now. We've had a pretty tumultuous past here in this country.
Well, now look, Marty. Look. We wouldn't even be talking about race if we had, moved if we had ever, moved past it and, say, elected a black man for president.
Wait.
Oh.
Wait.
Oh, we did that.
We did do that. We did do that.
Oh, boy.
See, all week.
Are you saying that a black man or a black child could grow up with realistic aspirations to be president of this country?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, see, here's their playbook. Right out of Rules for Radicals, man. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. See, there's one thing in this country, because we've had such a tumultuous past. There's one thing in this country guaranteed to divide, and that's race. The civil rights industry in this country.
And there is one.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, and it is a cash cow, my friend. A cash cow if you want to get in on it.
I know Al Sharpton's got more suits than I do.
Well, he's not alone. He's not alone in it now. But in this country, if you really want to get some division going on, start bringing up race. And worse than that, start pointing the finger and start crying racist. And if you keep applying that term enough, eventually it's going to stick to a lot of people. The trouble is it's not sticking to the right people anymore. Back in the 60s when we had our, the civil rights movement in this country, the racist label was sticking exactly where it needed to go. I mean, it was most absolutely 100% accurate in its aim. There was some nasty people going around back then that were doing some nasty stuff. Remember the Klan case? You remember them? Here in Alabama, we know all about the Klan. And back then, in their heyday, whoa, man. They was doing some pretty horrific stuff.
Some people who wasn't in the Klan, like George Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
Bull Connor.
Mm-hmm.
Down here in Alabama, they did some nasty things. We know all about it.
Mm-hmm. And the rest of the country pointed their fingers at them and said, you are a racist and it is wrong. And the government stepped in and did something about it. I might add that it was a government and a legislative body, made up of a whole bunch of white folks, too, that were pointing that finger at their fellow white man and saying, you are wrong. And we're going to fix that.
Most of them were Republicans.
Ain't that weird? Ain't it weird how it was the Republican Party that stood in there and said, no, those are racist.
And that brings you back around to this whole Saul Alinsky thing.
Mm-hmm.
Criticize the other party for the same things that you do, except you got to do them first.
Yep. And say, look what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be so heinous that all you really have to do is make that accusation. And it doesn't matter if it's true. Make them deny it. And in this country,
you can keep
everything...
your opponent off balance.
In this country, everything that has come down to race has now divided this country to the point that it's getting harder and harder to get any legitimate criticisms in without being accused of hatred. And you know who is the best? I mean the best in this country at that. We got a champion in this country of division. A champion now. Who would you think?
Oh, I'd have to rank Barack Obama right up there.
Bingo. When I've asked that question a few times, who's the biggest, race baiter or divider in this country? I've heard names like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Quanell X, David Duke. Remember back then, David Duke, when he was a member of the Klan? Farrakhan. But it's our racist in chief.
Yeah,
President
those
of the United
guys
States.
Are amateurs.
Man.
Compared to Barack Hussein Obama.
That's how he got into the White House to begin with. That's the only way he got in there. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. He held that little speech yesterday. And now, get this. Jay Carney went on MSNBC yesterday morning before his speech and said that the president was pivoting back to the economy. Now, this is the 19th time in his presidency that he has pivoted towards the economy. Somebody need to get that man some breaks.
Now, he's like, one of them little ducks at the fair that it moves across. You hit it and it turns around and goes the other way, and then you shoot it again and it goes back. He's like a weeble.
Man, I'm telling you. But he going to come back around. He going to hit the economy eventually. And in his speech yesterday, I kept waiting on him because he was saying, the president's going to unveil his plan, going to unveil a new economic strategy. And no, he didn't. He had the same strategy that he's always had.
Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. The top 1% in this country, their income is quadrupled, while the rest of this country is struggling.
And the thing is, all these things that he's saying are so horrible. He did it to us.
Yeah.
That line, I could
sack
just
of
go,
excrement.
Okay, I'm trying to keep this meme all friendly.
But
he sits up there, or he stands in front of that microphone, looks at his teleprompter, and starts the division. And he starts talking about the economy and all the horrible things. And he's done single one of those things to us with overregulation, executive overreach. Need I go on?
Taxation without representation. And when if it's stuff he can't get through Congress, he'll just either use executive action or he'll just stick to the Justice Department on them.
Or the Department
IRS.
Of Energy, maybe.
Yeah,
or the
Department of
IRS.
Energy. Yeah, any
the
tool
EPA.
at his disposal. Any tool at his disposal. And yesterday during his little speech, which, by the way, was the same speech he gave in 2008, the same speech he gave in 09, 10, 11, 12, and this year, too. It's the same recycled garbage of income inequality and racism. He just can't stay away from it. Listen to this. I got like a minute of his speech because, quite frankly, I will not subject our listeners to much more than a minute of that man's garbage. But listen to this.
Or they'll talk about government assistance for the poor, despite the fact that they've already cut early education for vulnerable kids. They've already cut insurance for people who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Or they'll bring up Obamacare. This is tried and true. Despite the fact that our businesses have created nearly twice as many jobs in this recovery as businesses had at the same point in the last recovery when there was no Obamacare. So that's what we've been fighting for. But with this endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals, Washington's taken its eye off the ball. And I'm here to say this needs to stop. This needs to stop.
Wait a minute. There's so many questions that pop to mind here. But right off the bat, did you notice that when he gives these speeches, he'll say, and Washington has taken their eye off the ball, as if he is not part of Washington, as if he's not even there, as if he's had nothing to do with it?
Oh, yeah.
And when he talks about people who've lost jobs through no fault of their own.
No, it's your fault, Mr. President. It's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to this. Let's take this point by point, man. Point by point.
Or they'll talk about government assistance for the poor, despite the fact that they've already cut early education for vulnerable kids.
Now, Casey, cutting education for vulnerable kids. Who's he talking about there? I mean, what program is he talking about there?
Is he talking about Head Start?
He's talking about Head Start.